Hello again, it's Noob, and today we get to look at something I think pretty special, something I've wanted to look at for a number of years, and finally a very good friend of mine lent me theirs, which is the Peterson Pro-1 Series 2 Tubular lockpick, and this is designed for professionals for non-destructive entry so that you can recut a key for an important lock. It's got a little, which I think is really cute. I don't know if they still do this anymore. I don't know how old this is. Maybe they put this on a USB stick or something now, but there's a little training DVD. How cute is that? It also comes with an instruction manual, which is kind of cool. So yeah, what do you get inside the kit apart from the instructions? Well, you get the tool itself, and I have to admit, it's surprisingly impressive, isn't it? Just look at this thing. It's very similar to the Sputnik style, like a standard pin tumbler lock pick. You take the blue cap off to expose the tip, and you'll notice that at the moment these will depress in just with a touch of your finger, and if you do that then these little things move in and out. So if I pull it out, you might see I'm pulling this at the top, and that corresponds to this little probe here coming out, or should I call them a wire? I'll call them wires or probes throughout this video. There are little knurled turners here and a little locking nut there as well, which we will come on to a bit later, and one empty one. You'll notice there are 7 of these probe wires installed at the moment, but if you had an 8-pin tubular lock, you can install another wire. Maybe I'll show that a bit later as well. So that's the pick. I'll demonstrate how to use that in a second. Then in here we get a whole load of tips. So there are 4 more tips. You've got one already installed. It also has a depth gauge for when you have picked the lock. You can see how deep the cuts will be so you can make a key for it, and a couple of hex keys which we can use to change the tips when we need. All the tips have their own little codes on there, and there's one already installed. The one that's installed already is the 0.38 inch diameter 7-pin tip. The 8-pin 0.38 diameter tip is used for locks which have a pin configuration like this, so that can be 7 or 8 pins. You'll notice how close 2 of these are to the tension tip there. We have the 0.36, if I can find it, which is this one, the 7-pin 0.36, which is narrow. You also have a deep narrow, so this is a deeper narrow tip here, and this is designed for American lock padlocks like this one here. And you also have a very, very, very narrow or very small one, which is the 0.34 of an inch one, which is, I believe, let's find them, that one there, which is a 7-pin, and that you can see here that that inner ring is a lot smaller than, say, this one here. So you can see the differences, and the differences sort of in depths. So this one, for example, you can see the difference there between how deep you can go with this tip as opposed to this tip, where the collar only allows you to go to a much shallower depth. Here's some examples of some tubular locks with different inner diameters here, across here, different widths that you have as well in terms of the difference between the outer and the inner parts of the lock exposing the pins. So you see this is very tight, this is even tighter, this one in comparison is quite wide. You can see some of these, especially the padlocks, maybe the bike locks as well, there's quite a considerable amount of depth before you can get to the face of the lock, so you need a special tip or tool to access that. So yeah, these are just examples of some of the variants of the locks that you can expect to be able to pick with a tool like this. So I have a tubular lock in the vise. I really want to demonstrate how this tool works, but first, and this isn't sponsored in any way, all thoughts my own, this is just on loan, this feels really nice. The materials feel quality, the build quality feels really good. The materials used in general in this are just really, the finishing's really nice. It's a genuinely nice tool. I'm actually quite impressed with it. Yes, it's a little top heavy, which means that it'd be easier to use the tool straight down rather than at an angle, but I'm on camera here, so I sort of have to do this at an angle. But yeah, it's a little bit top heavy. If you're using it at an angle, you've got to compensate for that to make sure that the face of the tool is flush with the lock, but I'll come on to that in a second. To set this tool up, it's quite easy. You loosen off all these nulled knobs until the point where these probe tips can retract back into the face of the tool itself. But if some of them won't go all the way down, and you might think, well, why do I want that? It's because if it won't go all the way down, you push that in, it might overset whatever pin position that is, and you'll never open the lock. Then you just loosen off the knurling anti-clockwise a little bit more, and you'll see that tip retract in all the way. Now, these will be loose then, and you can push these in quite far, like that. And that means that they'll go and pick all your pins in the lock, which is what you want, but you can retract them back down until you want to pick any pin in particular. It has a tension tip here, and that will interact with the cut on the center post and apply tension to the tool. You'll see how, as I turn this, the back of the cam lock will jiggle in turn as it applies tension both ways. When you use a tool like this, depending on what lock you have will depend on which way you tension. So most padlocks will need to be tensioned clockwise. Some cam locks especially will need to be tensioned anti-clockwise, depends how they're installed, what they're used for, all those kind of things. So just bear that in mind. Right, so let's go. We're all flush. We will have to put this flush with the face of the lock. So what will happen is when I tension this using that tension tip, I want to make sure that I don't rock it back and forth like this, because obviously that will change the length of the probes. So I want to keep it nice and flush. Luckily it's got a nice handle so we can do that. We're going to put that into the lock, make sure it's nice and flush, and hold it into place flush. So I've got this tensioned, I'm holding it into place flush, and what I'm going to do is, so it's not going to rock about too much. Obviously, you know, this is hard on a desktop device, but that's what we're going to deal with. So what do I do now? Well, now I've got it all sort of flush to the lock, I can test each one of these probes in turn, and you'll see that some of them are springy, like this, and some of them will bind, and that means, like this, it gives a little click, and the core will turn in, well, in turn, in response. So we go round, one gave a nice click, two little click, three little click, four little click, nothing on 5, 6 little click, nothing on 7, 1, 2, nothing on 3, nothing on 4, 5, 6, 7, and we just keep going round, making sure at all times that we are flush with the face of the lock, and we keep going round until we get that open. So hear those nice clicks. Eventually you'll stop feeling those clicks, and there you go, and you'll just feel the whole thing open. So 1, 2, I hit 2, and we are sort of really set and ready to go. So the lock is open. Now what you can do at this point is you can turn all of these down until you can't, so you want to make sure that you don't push the tool away from the face of the lock, but you want to lock these down now it's open, like this, making sure that you're not pushing away from the face of the lock, because you still want to make sure it's open. And then what you've got is a lock which is open, and you'll have locked in the actual sort of bitting as you go. So let me just finish doing these. So once you're still flush with the face of the lock and all of these are locked down, you can, if you want to, move these little nuts up to double lock in these wires if you so wish. Now we've got the open. Can you see this turning? Let me show you. So you've got all that open. See how that's all turned? What we've got there is the actual bitting of the lock. Now we have the exact bitting of the lock, we can actually use this tool to measure the actual cuts. So I think that, say, pin 1 is a 5 cut, looks like, so is pin 2, pin 3 is also a 5 cut, and you keep going around like that, and you can see what the actual cuts on this tool are. That will then tell you what you need to cut your key for, and then the key will work in the lock. Pretty cool, huh? If I wanted to pick something like this American lock, which is deep set into the lock face, I would need to find the appropriate tip. And that, because it's very, very narrow here, so it's got a deep, narrow tip that will go all the way down and be flush. Let's have a look at the other tip we've got here. Will that even go in? Well, it will, but it won't tension. It'll just turn around in there. It's a yeah, and that actually also might be too wide, even if I could get it in, because that's a very narrow sort of keyway. To change the tips isn't actually as hard as you might think. There's a little collar here which you can remove to give extra depth. It also reduces the depth that you can insert this in, because you don't want to push it too far into a lock, so that can come off very, very easily. And then you have a central little bolt here, which we can just take out like that. Then what we can do is we can just gently unscrew these nulled tips until they retract a bit further down. Once everything's been fully retracted, we can just gently take off this tip, and you see the exposed probes there. You can retract them even further if you want to. To swap the tip out, then we just have to pop this in and locate the little lugs here like that, and pop this in, and just be very, very gentle as you go. You don't want to damage anything. You want to get everything into its little slots. Don't force anything, doesn't need forcing. And then you can put on the center screw thing, and then once you screw these back down again, you'll see all of the little probes. Can you see that? All coming up to the surface here like that, which is kind of cool. If you wanted to install the 8-pin tip, then you would need to use the spare wire probe, and that's what they actually look like, which I think is really cool. And to do that, you'd put the tip in, of course, you'd undo this all the way, pop that in like this, and then if that had 8 holes, that would feed through the 8th hole as well. So it's surprisingly adaptable. Okay, so I have the American lock in the vise now. I'm going to see if that narrow, deep tip can help me pick it. So I'm just going to pop that tension tool in, make sure I've got a nice grip on this, and we're going to try to pick this pin by pin. And you can see that some of them are springy still, and it's about seeing who is binding. So 7 there, 1, 2 there, nothing on 4. Oh, nice click on 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, nothing, 5, 6, 7 again. And then it's just about going along and seeing what's binding. I feel like there are tapers on the pins, which means that we might have to tap the tops of these pins as we go. Can you hear those little clicks as we go around? That indicates that we are getting closer to being picked, because there are sort of tapered pins here which just need to be addressed. Oh, and we got the open, so I can feel that open. Because it's open, I'm going to screw these down. So as I turn this, we should get the open. Yeah, we got it. It's quite a stiff shackle, as I said, but it means that we can lock it all the way back up as well. Oh, I went a bit too far. I mean, this does actually act like the key now. It's all been locked down here, so let me just get it back to where it should be, which is that position. There we go. So we're fully locked up. We can insert that. I wouldn't suggest doing this too often, because you know it's not supposed to act as the key, but it does act as the key. And then you can lock it back up and you're good to go. So clearly the Peterson Pro-1 is a very versatile, very robust, very effective tubular lock picking tool. You know, it can pick left and right, 7 8-pin tubular locks, 8-pin tubular locks. It can retain the sort of bitting. You can decode off it. I mean, it's a very cool tool. But the elephant in the room is a tool like this, which I've checked the website is $490. Going to be worth it compared to tools like this tubular lock tensioner, which is a few dollars, or some of these impressioning tools, tubular lock impressioning tools, which cost a few tens of dollars. And the answer is, actually, it does have a lot of advantages, but not so much for a hobbyist, maybe for a professional. Let me explain. So, this has 5 different tips of different depths, narrowness and sizes. That seems very similar to impressioning tools like this, and I've used these for many years, where we have different diameters of tip. However, these tools still struggle in a range of tight keyways. Let me show you. So this is a classic Ace tubular lock, and the right inner diameter tool, which is the 7.8mm, can't fit in because the rest of the tool is just too wide. So it can fit over the center post, but can't actually get in to impression the lock. Depending on the brand of tubular lock impressioning tool, that may vary. But the same is true for really tight, deep locks like the American lock. It's just really impossible to get one of these tubular lock tensioning tools in. It's just it's an impossibility, especially with the brand that I've got here. Maybe others might work, but this isn't uncommon. These cheaper tubular lock impressioning tools are just not super versatile. Plus, these can only pick 7 pins. Some locks are really hard to impression because of security pins in them, all that kind of stuff. So for a few tens of dollars, you can pick these up. They can be really effective. I really have fun using these impressioning tools, but they're not really as versatile in any way as one of these, although you can still decode the bittings off the tips of these. Now, the tools like this, these little tubular lock tensioning tools, brilliant to have in your kit. They can open up tons of locks, especially things like these cam locks and maybe even some padlocks like this with a nice wide keyway. So these are great. They cost a few dollars. You know, you can throw them into your kit. They work on a whole load of locks, but some locks with very deep, especially very tight keyways like this, they just can't tension. These are fantastic, but they are not flexible because they are a defined depth and width between the 2 tips of the tool. So you might be able to just about get these in, but it doesn't mean that you can always pick these locks. Some of them are just so tight so you can't effectively get the tips in. Again, really good tools, but not always effective in certain keyways, especially super deep keyways. And this tool is able to do all of that. Apart from the price, which is definitely a professional level price, are there any disadvantages? Well, a little bit. So if you have a lock like this without a tensioning post in it, you can't actually get the tool in because it just can't go in. That tip forces you out. You can't easily remove these tips, at least as far as I can tell. Couldn't see anything in the instructions, so that tension tip won't allow you to get into these non-center tensioned locks, while a tool like this will, for example. So that will allow you to tension those. You can also impression locks like this because of their super wide keyway. So there are some things, weirdly, that this tool can't do, which other cheaper tools can. So other than that, though, I can't think of any disadvantages. It's very easy to use. Once you get used to it, it can be a very rapid open as well. You sort of just go tap, 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 tap. You get a real feel for it. The whole thing turns. You can lock it down if you want to retain the bitting. You can easily swap out the tips and stuff. I mean, it's very, very easy to use, very robust. Seems to be, like I said, very well made, as I said earlier. So the overall quality of this robustness and versatility for locksmiths, I would say locksmiths, not hobbyists, who want to have a non-destructive opening of a tubular lock, maybe for security reasons, maybe for making a key of them, then I think this tool is really, really quite impressive. Would I recommend this to a hobbyist? Not at $500. No, there's just no need for it, I'd say. I mean, it's a great fun tool, great if you're a bit of a collector. I am, and I don't think I could justify buying one of these myself just for the sake of having one. As great as it is, as fun as it is, and as cool looking as it is, I think that you would need to be a professional locksmith who encounters a lot of tubular locks that you want to open non-destructively to make this anyway near a feasible economic option, I think. But it is very, very cool. So I can't fault Peterson for this, really, in terms of how they made it. It'd be great to see them do, like, I think there's even like 9, 10 and 11 pin tubular locks. Clearly it'd be crowded for space here, but those are really high security tubular locks, and it'd be nice to see one of these variants that can allow you to pick 9, 10 and 11 pin tubular locks. That would sort of be cool as well. But I think that the fact that you can do 7 and 8 pin tubular locks in one tool in of itself is pretty awesome. Well, look, that is the Peterson Pro-1 Series 2 tubular lock tool. I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think to this tool. Have you ever used one? Are you a locksmith? Do you have one? I'd really be curious as to what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments below. I do read them all, and I reply to as many as I can. If you like this video, give it a like. If you haven't subscribed, now's a great time to do so, and I will see you all next time.